Good morning and welcome back to Devotion. We're looking at the book of Habakkuk, which is one of the minor prophets in the Old Testament. And Habakkuk is the only prophetic book in the Old Testament where God does not directly use the prophet to speak to God's people on his behalf. Instead, this is a dialogue, a prayer, a complaint, an argument between Habakkuk and God. Yesterday, we saw that this book opens with a complaint right away. He's asking God, how can you see all this injustice and not do anything? Where are you? Why are you taking so long to actually act or to intervene? And then God replies to him and says, well, I actually am working and have been working, and I'm about to do a work, but if I told you what that work was, you wouldn't believe it. But then God goes on to tell him what the work is, and surprise, Habakkuk doesn't believe it and it is actually more perplexed and more confused at how God responds to his complaints. God says, I am raising up Babylon, this corrupt, abusive, tyrannical, controlling, idolatrous nation. I'm going to continue to increase them and give them power so that they can overtake Judah, the tribe of Judah. And this not only baffles Habakkuk, but it really ups the ante. He replies with, how can you, a righteous God, a holy God, continue to increase power in such an unrighteous and evil people? I don't get it. This does not make sense to me. And so when God told him, even if I told you, you wouldn't believe it, he was right. So yesterday we ended at the end of chapter 1 where Habakkuk gave his rebuttal, which was his second complaint of how in the world are you, a righteous God, giving power to such an unrighteous nation? And you're giving them that power to overtake your people? It just did not make sense. So he goes through this whole woe, he goes through this whole complaint, and now we're looking at Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 1. I will take my stand at my watchpost and station myself on the tower and look out to see what he will say to me and what I will answer concerning my complaint. So Habakkuk's conclusion to his second complaint is, I am going to station myself as a watchman in a watchtower. And if you don't know what that is, if you think about my best way of understanding it is in medieval times when they would have the walls around the city, and then there was towers that were at, where the wall would meet the corner, if you would. And at the top of those towers, those corners, were people who were stationed at the top with weapons, and as well as someone that would sound an alarm if they saw in the distance that an enemy was coming. And so in essence, what Habakkuk is saying here is, okay, I don't get it, and this is the problem I have in what you're saying, but I am going to position myself to wait and hear back from God. I am going to keep my eyes wide open, and I'm not going to give up. I'm going to persist and wait for God to reply to me, his response to my second complaint. And we have no idea how much time passed between the first two verses of chapter 2 and verse 3. Because in verse 3, this is when the word of the Lord comes to him. Again, this could have been a few minutes, it could have been a few days, it could have been a few months. We have no idea. But we do know he waited some period of time because he's using this language, this imagery of someone who posts himself up on a wall and will not move, keeping their eyes steady on the horizon, waiting for the enemy to come, but in this case, waiting for God to reply to him. So chapter 2, verse 2, and the Lord answered me, write the vision, make it plain on tablets, so he may run who reads it. For still the vision awaits its appointed time, it hastens to the end, it will not lie. If it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come, it will not delay. Behold, his soul is puffed up, it is not upright within him, but the righteous shall live by faith. Now that's a huge verse that gets echoed into the New Testament. Moreover, wine is a traitor, an arrogant man who is never at rest. His greed is as wide as Sheol, like death he has never enough. He gathers for himself all nations and collects as his own all peoples. All right, now there's a lot in here, and I don't want us to miss it. So here's Habakkuk having this back and forth with God. He says, okay, God, I'm going to stand and wait and watch for you to come, for your word, your response. And then God does come. And God says to him, I'm going to give you a vision and I want you to make it plain. I want you to write it down on tablets. Now, the key point here is, so God says, I'm going to give you a vision. And then he says in verse 3, for still the vision awaits its appointed time. So God is saying to him, I'm going to give you a vision, but the vision has its own timing. So don't get discouraged if you don't get it right away. He says, if it seems slow, wait for it. And this is so much of how God works in my life and how he just works. He's like, here, I'm going to give you a vision to answer your complaint. But the vision has its own appointed time. So don't worry, it'll come. Just wait for it. Which I don't know if you ever had that happen in your life with God, but it happens to me a lot, where there's a promise set before me. And then there is this like long lapse of time until that thing actually is fulfilled. And I think it's important for me and for you and for us to realize that delay in God does not mean denial. A lot of times we can misinterpret when something is taking a long time that God is denying. He's denying our requests. He's denying to move. He's denying to speak. But here we can see that delay is not denial. God's timing is perfect, and there is a reason. There is intelligence behind the delay. You won't know it, and I won't know it. He didn't know why, but God knows why. And that's why it's so important to trust his perfect timing, even beyond his perfect timing, to trust him, that he is able and capable, and he will move and he will speak when the time is appropriate. And then God moves into this affirmation. He's affirming what is really bothering Habakkuk, which is that injustice is going unchecked. And God assures him that the wickedness, that the pride, that the unrighteous, all of them will receive the judgment in due time, whether they be of the tribe of Judah or whether they be in Babylon. Injustice will not go unchecked. And smack dab in the middle of God affirming what Habakkuk is really concerned about, and God is saying, no, I am just. And so here in verse 4 is this very famous line, behold, his soul is puffed up, it is not upright within him, but the righteous shall live by faith. And then Paul reiterates this multiple times in the New Testament, in the book of Romans, in the book of Galatians, in the book of Hebrews. He uses this phrase in quoting Habakkuk, that the just shall live by faith. And so in essence, what God is saying here, he's creating a contrast that those who are puffed up, those who are proud, those who are arrogant, they live by what they see. They store up food in their barns. They make their bellies fat. They acquire all of the goods that they can get. They become greedy. And God says that all of those things are like Sheol. They're like hell to that person. But the contrast to that is the righteous person. The one who lives upright before God does not live according to the things that are seen. He lives by faith. And the way I define faith is radical dependence on God. And so in some roundabout way here, God is addressing Habakkuk's main concern. And God's answer to him is to write down this vision, but it's going to take a minute, so be patient. And that justice will come. Justice will be served. And when he calls out that the just shall live by faith, he's in essence saying, Habakkuk, you are a righteous one. You are someone who is living upright before me. So you have to live by faith. Like, living by faith is in your DNA. That's how I want you to go forward from here. Stop looking at the events around you. Stop allowing the circumstances to affect you, and then make conclusions and deductions about who I am, and then allow that to cloud your vision and your understanding of my character and how I move. Instead, look beyond the physical. Look to me. Have radical dependence on me. And in doing so, you will have clear eyes to see and open ears to hear what God is saying and what God is doing.